Still sitting in a truck seat that's older than your favorite pair of work boots? Your back has been filing complaints for years. If your seat is worn out, sagging, or just plain uncomfortable, it's time for an upgrade. Head on over to seatspecialist.com. Check out their selection of quality replacement seats built to keep you comfortable mile after mile. And don't forget to use promo code TR10 4U to save 10% on your order. Seatspecialist.com, because a better ride starts with a better seat. Welcome back to That's Delivered. Today we have an episode packed with real life trucking wisdom, the kind of lessons you don't find in a handbook. Our guest is someone who has lived it, built a business from the ground up, and is now sharing what he has learned along the way. Jamie Hagen, the owner of Hell Bent Xpress, joins us today. 15 years ago, Jamie walked into Mid-America Truck Show, MATS, as a company driver, dreaming of becoming an owner-operator. Now he's built a small fleet, faced some of the toughest industry challenges head on, and is one of the featured speakers in this year's show. But today we're going to go deeper into just his business success. And we're going to explore what made him take that leap into trucking, the struggles he's faced that nearly made him quit, and the valuable lessons you've learned along the way. If you're a driver, a business owner, or just someone who loves a great story of perseverance, you want to stick around. So let's get into it. Jamie, hey, appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks for doing all of this, taking the time out to let our listeners know what it's like to be in the trucking industry, and try to get know a little more about your background and the beginnings of how it all got started with Hell Bent Xpress. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself, Ray?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yep. Another day, right? It's a good day to think about all the blessings we have. Keep us going each and every day, right?
Right. I can't complain.
So, Jamie, take us back to the very beginning, before trucking wasn't even a thought. What was life like for you before you're stepping into the big rig?
Well, my whole life's been in trucking. My dad was a truck driver / farmer in the 70s and 80s. So, as soon as I was old enough to leave the house, he, took me in the truck with him. So I've been in a semi truck my whole life. I got my CDL when I turned 18, so I've been driving trucks my entire life. Haven't had another job, quote unquote, the entire time. It's just been driving trucks. Now, whether it was for my dad, who, when I was 18, he decided to buy a few trucks. And so we all just, I ran around the South Dakota because I couldn't leave the state. So until I turned 21, I ran out and bought my own truck and quickly learned driving the truck's the easy part. It's operating the business is the hard part, or at least for me it was. I imagine there's business people out there that look like driving is the harder part, right? That's the one part I didn't know. So within a few years, I was out of being an owner operator, lost it. And then I became a company driver. And then over the next decade, as a company driver, just longed to, do it again, give it another shot. So that's how it sort of come to pass. The Mid-America Truck Show to me looked like the prime opportunity to gain knowledge. With all the manufacturers back then were there at the show. So you could go from one truck to the next truck and just literally do a head-to-head comparison and talk to engineers, talk to salespeople, talk to corporate people. To me, I always thought Mid-America Truck Show was just like the perfect place if you wanted to, go in with no bias and really look at something and get a really good review of it. Just a good, you know, how often can you sit down with the guy that designed the cab of the truck or the interior of the truck and actually have a one-to-one with them? I always thought that was fantastic. It's kind of sad that they ended up not, you know, they didn't get enough people that interested in it, so the manufacturers, stopped doing it. That's the crazy part to me, right?
Yeah, that is nuts. There's a lot of stories that go behind things, and we don't know when they're not there what happened. What why aren't they here anymore? Or telling their stories. So, yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
speaking.
What I learned after the fact, I went to that truck show, gained a lot of knowledge, but started interacting with a lot of people uh, on a corporate level, which led to uh, years later my relationship with Mack Trucks. But that was literally the spark that happened with them. Uh, but I got to know a lot of people behind the scenes, and when they decided all the manufacturers to kind of let go, and it was Freightliner that really kicked it off. Freightliner decided they weren't going back. So everybody kind of fell in place with them afterwards. But it really came down to there wasn't enough interest. Attendees would show up at the truck show and they would breeze past them, but nobody really asked any questions. Nobody really, you know, like me, was very interested in all the mechanical side of it, the engineering side of it, the questions that we all ask ourselves as we're driving down the road. Why in the hell did they put that button there? you know, for me, that was a great opportunity, but nobody else thought it was, I guess so. In the end, they all felt like the Mid America Truck Show wasn't enough of a grab for real uh, customers.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, thanks for that background.
Yeah,
You know what you're doing when you walk past somebody. So, you can give someone just a few minutes of your time. Never know how that can be impactful for the future as well. So, what sparked the fire? Let's see. Did you always want to be trucking? I know you say you started very young, and was it always a childhood dream, or did you have inspirations?
yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of hard not to when your dad is, like every kid, he's your hero or whatever. And I was already being raised in a truck. You know, started driving vehicles when I was 8. Out there in the middle of nowhere, South Dakota, it's pretty easy to just have your kids follow you in your vehicle. My dad would jump in a tractor and he'd be like, "Jump in the pickup and follow me." Well, you're only doing 20 miles an hour. What can possibly go wrong other than maybe running into the back of them? Um, which I didn't do, by the way. I've never done that, but that's the only thing I could see going wrong with a small child in that scenario. But it's all I really ever wanted to do. So as soon as I was old enough, I just took to it. Um, and to me, it seemed like a great living, especially being out on the road. It's kind of, I've always looked at trucking as an adventure. Some guys look at it as a job, and I'm like, yeah, I get paid for sure. But for me, it was always the adventure. You got to see new country and new and interesting people. South Dakota is very European, like it's a lot of people from Germany and Norway, and it's kind of the same people, all with Hagen and Anderson and all kinds of uh, European names, right? So like for me, like to leave the state was exciting. I got to see other parts, like Chicago, like all these places you see in the movies, right? Like, so for me, it was always the adventure of trucking that was kind of the allure.
That's great. I mean, it's a great way to do it to see all 48 or maybe even more. So you think about all that traveling you did. I mean, was there any hesitation, or were there any other career dreams that you wanted to explore, or is this it's been the whole way through just trucking?
Well, I mean, my backup plan was always a carpenter, but that's I do part-time
You do some of
carpentry
your own,
work.
you do some of
Uh,
your own carpentry work at home?
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Well,
nice.
I've built a house. For my previous marriage, I built a house at one time, so it's something I love and enjoy. So
Nice. Yeah, that is a good backup plan. Wow. So who was the first person that truly supported your decision to become a driver? Was it your dad, or is there somebody else? Kind of just peer into that background to get a little more idea
I
of
mean,
what got you going.
yeah, I mean, it would have been my dad, I guess, the guy that helped. Like I said, when I South Dakota, prior to having a CDL law, in the state of South Dakota, anybody could drive a Class 8 truck as long as you were in the state. So I actually started driving when I was 16, driving big trucks. Now, it was a day cab and it was around the area. It wasn't anything crazy. But, still driving. And he's the one that wanted us, when I got old enough, he's like, hey, let's take it to the next level. Let's get a truck with a sleeper on it, and let's get this, and let's try it. So he was very supportive of the situation. Yeah.
So taking the leap to own or operate, let's skip forward to that. I mean, you mentioned 15 years ago, you attended Matt's as a company driver looking to become an owner operator or to like I said, to revisit that idea. What was running through your mind at that time when you're at the show, or kind of take us through that? Or was there a conversation maybe at a booth or a speaker that kind of lit the fire under you? That helped the listeners get a picture of that.
The fire was lit, when I failed that first time. You know what I mean? I really wanted to go out and do a great job. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to fail, right? And it's a hard lesson to learn when you're, at the time I was only 21 and 22 years old, so I'm a young kid. I'm still having good times, and living the dream, out there on the road. If you had the weekend off, I didn't just sit in the truck stop. Let's just say, I'd go find adventure, which was expensive. Different things that just caused, didn't have the right truck for the scenario. Just bought a truck, when the time come. Back in the 90s, Mercedes-Benz owned Freightliners, so they would finance anybody. Literally, all you had to come up with was 10% down, and they'd finance anybody. So some 21-year-old kid, I went and borrowed the 10%. So wasn't the best business plan to begin with, borrowing your down payment, but ran out and bought a truck. And it was just a matter of time before I failed at it. Didn't have any business plan, didn't have any sort of book work, I didn't know my cost per mile was. I didn't know anything. I was just collecting checks and driving. And then at the end of the year, I took it to an accountant. The accountant said, hey, you made money, And then one year, the guy looked at me and said, I don't think you made any money. And I said, it didn't feel like it. It really felt like I didn't make any money. But at the end of the year, you don't really know that. You know what I mean? You feel it, but it just came down to checking account was dry. At that point, it was too late. So when I went the second time, I wanted to use my head. Started listening to a guy, Kevin Rutherford. He had a show on Sirius XM, and I would listen to him a lot. And that was one of his suggestions, was treating it like a business. So that's why I decided to tackle it that way. I knew how to drive, but I didn't know much about how trucks were spec'd and what was the optimal fuel efficiency. I knew fuel efficiency would be key because it's your largest expense when you're an owner operator. So I knew if I could cut that cost, I could be profitable even when times were tough. Because there's one thing I've learned in trucking: it's always a cycle. There's always a roller coaster. You go up, and then it just comes crashing right back down again. And then it goes up again. Being in the industry my entire life, that's all I've ever seen. So I knew if you had a truck that could make it through those lean times, well, then you were a success over the decades. So that's what led me to go there. I mean, I really wanted to. Let me just say, it's one thing to go to a salesperson at a dealership and talk to them about trucks. They're salespeople. They don't know anything about driving a truck. They probably don't even have a CDL. So then they take a course, that somebody showed them, like, this is what's important in a truck. That's not necessarily the most important thing in a truck. As drivers, we know that's not necessarily the most important thing. So getting information out of them is always second, third, fourth hand, not accurate, the best information, So like I said, going to Mid-America to me, was exciting to get in front of someone who had the information that I wanted.
That's awesome. I mean, yeah, there's so many vendors there, so many booths. Man,
Yeah.
you can be there all week and still not get to everybody probably, and get all the information.
Well, I went there for the 3 days, and I felt like I was rushing at the end to try to get through it all because I went in with an open mind, and I did sit down and I talked to. I mean, not only is there truck manufacturers there, but there's trailer manufacturers. There's business professionals. There's people with fuel cards. There's people with all kinds of services that you need that you can get there and really put a business plan all together, while you're there. I mean, there's just everything a person could need is at Matt's.
So we definitely encourage people to go check out Matt's. Still got time to get in and get the tickets and get prepared and do that planning, like you said. And so, was there any big fears or hesitation? I know there were some setbacks for you, but maybe share a little bit of the vulnerability of being in the trucking industry. Was there any fears or hesitation that make you want to not do owner operator or?
There's lots of fears.
Yeah.
Like I said, with these cycles that a person is involved in trucking, there's nothing written in concrete in trucking, in stone. It's all written in pencil. So there's that fear that you could be here today, gone tomorrow. There's no, some of the biggest trucking companies in our industry have gone under, some real big ones. And so it's like, no matter what your size is, it always feels like it's such a harsh industry to be involved in, which maybe that's what makes it so rewarding, because if you succeed, you succeed in a really tough industry. It's easy to get in, for sure. Buy yourself a truck, get yourself a CDL, boom, you're in the industry. You can go to the load board and you can find customers, and you're off and running, so to speak. That's easy. The hard part is finding how to stay in it, how to survive it, how to excel in it. So that's you know, the fear, as
Yeah.
you were talking about, is is surviving it, just struggling through it, and not knowing if you're going to make it, one wrong decision or several wrong decisions, and you're out as quickly as you went in.
I mean, think
So,
about a lot of drivers. They want to become an owner operator. They see that nice truck driving by or what have you, and they want to take that leap. Man, what would you say to those individuals that say to if they want to go for it? Well, you got any words of wisdom you want to share with them as well?
for me, I think being an owner operator was probably the best thing that ever happened to me as a driver. Being a company driver, you're sheltered from a lot of responsibility and a lot. You don't understand why the people you work for maybe make the decisions they make, but own the truck and you'll quickly learn why they make those decisions. And especially if you own a fleet. I started off with one truck, and from that Mid America Truck Show situation, I was able to spec an incredible truck that got great fuel economy. Uh, the industry standard is in the 6 range for fuel economy, and I spec the truck that got 8. And on good days, I did 10s. I was really happy with it, really pleased with how it turned out. But with that fuel savings, I just put it all in the bank, saved it up, got enough money to buy the second truck, and then did the same thing for the third. And it just kind of kept growing from there. The more I saved, the more I, was able to put aside and be able to handle these markets. So that to me is one of the things I would tell people. It's enjoyable if you're into business. If you really dig business and you like driving, it's a great thing to do. If you don't like bookwork, you don't like computers, I don't know. If you really hate, you can still do it. I mean, there's guys out there that do it. I'm not gonna lie. And I got a really good friend who has no idea what his operating costs are. He just smiles every day going the road. And if he makes a paycheck, it seems like he makes a paycheck. He's happy. So in trucking, you can do that. Does he make more than a company driver? I don't think so. He probably makes less, but he gets to make his own decisions, and that's all he really cared about.
It's great.
So,
It's great. Yeah.
yeah. But there's great success here if you want to treat it like a business and really hone your craft as a driver too. Those two things go hand in hand. So that to me has always been my biggest advice to guys. If you want to do it and succeed at it, there's a lot of opportunity out here to really become a master at the craft.
Can you take us through one of your challenges as an owner operator, or maybe one you're dealing with today, or maybe a moment where you thought, hey, what's the best way to handle this?
Challenges, there's all kinds of challenges. They're daily challenges. There's, trucking is nothing but challenges. I'd have to say, like, to succeed in trucking, you have to be good at problem solving, because every day there's a new and interesting problem that comes to light, whether it's the weather, whether it's the customer, the shipper, everything in between. The truck can be very challenging, especially in the wintertime, with fuel gelling and the roads being impossible at times. Like, you, you have to be good at problem solving. And then I'm faced with problems all day long now that we have 9 trucks on the road. We, for me, not only when I'm driving, but just dealing with my guys can be challenging at times. Just making sure that they're on target and keeping everybody going. At time, it feels like it's herding cats. You get one group kind of going towards the right direction, and these guys, they see you not, paying attention to them, so they stray off, go that way. So you're just always kind of corralling people and keeping everyone focused, going the right direction. So it's way more challenging than I thought it was going to be. Let's just say that when you're owning a fleet, I thought it was, like, wow, you just tell guys, pick up here, you deliver there, and it'll just be easy. It's not at all.
Give me an example. What's how bad can it get?
well, I mean, everybody has the way they want to do things, and I'm a firm believer in letting people have a certain amount of autonomy. You know what I mean? That's what you came to trucking for, more than likely, was not to be micromanaged. So I give people a certain amount of time. Just say, hey, here's where you pick up, here's where you deliver. I want you to do the best you can to get here from here to here. Here's the time frame. And there's just times where people aren't motivated to get there in a timely fashion, or maybe they don't feel good, or there's trouble at home, or there's all kinds of issues that can go wrong in the interim. And it's up to me and them, to come with a plan together to try to solve the problem. But they're the boots on the ground. They're the guys that are literally facing the problem face to face. I'm just the guy on the phone trying to make sure we do it the best we can. Make sure everyone ends up happy to the best of our abilities. In that scenario.
Yeah, maybe have an example you could share of a big win as an owner operator that made you feel like, yes, this was the right choice. Share those victories with us.
I mean, there's been times where a problem has come up, whether it's with the truck or with the customer. We had a few weeks back, we had a guy, a customer, give us 8 loads for the week. And we don't, I know we have 9 trucks, but, we can't all focus on one core customer. So it just worked out so well that we were able to get people in the right place at the right time and really super serve the customer. And the guys all came together. That's why I love every guy that works here. We just have a great relationship with them. I treat them better than family, if I'm being honest. Like family, you don't always treat them the best. I try to treat these guys well, but we all came together to meet this challenge of just getting, and it was tough. It really was. Like, everyone sacrificed. Some guys wanted to go home, and we didn't go home that week. We all, got in there and threw in the big effort. And sometimes that's the biggest challenge, is just motivating people to just stick with it. And like, hey man, this is just a really busy week, let's stick with it. Next week it probably won't be busy, or the week after, and we'll have a bunch of free time. And just trying to convince people of that is some of the bigger hurdles. Last week we had a truck gel up, so we were working with the driver, making sure like, hey, run inside, get this stuff, get this. This is what we're going to do next. Like just constantly problem solving through it until the truck got running again, and then still making it in time for the customer. You know, uh, which we just rescheduled appointments. Got made sure we still got it there. It worked out really good in the end, but it was a huge massive headache.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those gelling, man, that could be frustrating. What to do or what should we have done differently, man. That's be a headache. The growth of
Yeah.
Hell Bent Express, starting your own trucking business is no joke. What was the biggest eye opener when you made the transition from driver to business owner that you want to share with us? What was the biggest eye opener?
Well, what you made with one truck isn't what you're gonna make with two or three. You know, the profit margins shrink and your cost per mile goes up. Not only because you're providing a driver in that scenario, but health insurance for that driver. Uh, their level of commitment isn't as high as yours, so they're not going to run as optimally as yours. So your cost per mile actually goes up. And then the more trucks you add, well, now you need a place to park them. That place to park them isn't going to be cheap either, because trucks are large. So, you can't just park them willy nilly anywhere. So then, and the lot itself has to be able to hold up to the weight. So the things keep kind of increasing, like just your costs, uh, which I didn't plan for. When you're a single truck operator, you're kind of a lean machine. You know what I mean? Like there's not a lot of waste. At least if you're really good at it, you can really hone that craft and really become uh, very good at it. And then when you start adding people and learning, that's where the thing that caught me the most was, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting, in my mind, I thought economy of scale. The bigger you are, the cheaper you could run, because the big guys, they run cheap, right? Well, the big guys operate on such small margins, they're happy making a penny to 2 pennies a mile off of every mile they drive. And that's a pretty razor thin margin when you think about it, but it's because they're such a large company, they can operate on that razor line. When you're a small company, I can't operate off of just that small of a margin. So that was probably one of the bigger eye openers and one of the biggest challenges of going from a company driver to an owner operator to a fleet owner. All those things kind of added up.
Man, so man, that is something. Razor thin profit margins and the cost of expense can vary. You don't know it. One day it could be this way, and then the next day it could be another way. So, and at what point did you know that Hell Bent Express was bigger than just you, or when did you know, think that, hey man, I got this thing down here, and it's going to work out for you, so you could depend on it as your income.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was why I named it Hell Bent Express. I didn't want Jamie Hagen Trucking. You see a lot of guys just use their name, which is fine. It just, to me, it always seemed like it's not me, it's us. Like it was always going to be a team, you know. So I thought a name would, help people kind of focus on it. And plus, if something were to happen to me, it could continue on. You know what I mean? It didn't have to just be about me. Uh, but yeah, I mean, once we really picked up steam, once I got to 4 trucks, I had to hire somebody to help in the office, and that worked out really good. My wife was in the trucking industry to begin with, so with a service provider here in Ohio. So we hired her on right away, and now she's a co-owner, and she was able to really kind of take the business to the next level because she had all that business acumen that I didn't have, and computer knowledge, and all these things that we needed to grow. And that's when it grew. We were struggling at 4, and she come on board, and we instantly tripled within the next 2 years. And we stopped at 12, and then we shrank back down to 9 when things kind of got crazy in the market here in the last 2 years. We had a couple of trucks sitting and they weren't really doing anything. So I thought, well, I'll sell them off and and live to fight another day, right?
Right.
But yeah, that's, that's when I realized it was bigger than me when you start bringing people on board and they're able to kind of take the reins from you when you're not available. And yeah,
How nice to get that support too. You have someone backing you. That's great, man. I mean, trucking is all about relationships too. So
yeah.
you and your wife. Was there anyone else that helped you along the way to help you get where you're at?
I mean, we've had great people, relationships, like everyone talks about relationships. And it's weird because as truckers, I think some guys get into this occupation because they're not good with people. If you're not good with people, maybe owning a truck isn't for you either. You know, because you're going to do a lot of phone calls, you're going to meet a lot of people, and it's those relationships. There's so many choices out there. Let's use that word, choices, and it's your relationship with the customer or the uh, the I'm trying to think of the word I'm trying to use, dealership, like a truck dealership or repair shop. They've got customers too. They look at you as just another customer. There's all these different tools, and you're just one of them. You know what I mean? Like you're just a face in the crowd. And if you can't build a relationship with them to where they want to work with you smoothly, well, then it doesn't work. I established a great relationship with my Mac dealership, and uh, I go in there and we talk candidly. We work together. We, like I we go out on the town sometimes on weekends with my dealership guys. I send them free things from time to time. And you know what I mean? Like just to say thank you. And I'm building that relationship. So like that relationship helped when it came time you start owning a fleet and you got trucks. You know what I mean? You need someone to help you. You can't do this alone. So, and then along the way, I've made some great relationships with brokerages, that really helped. Like they taught me a lot about that side of it. Having a great relationship with a brokerage so they can share with you what they're looking for, what they want. So that way, not only can I help them, but I can help other ones. So when I call a place, I know what to say and what they're looking for and all those things, all based off of great relationships that helped grow it. Um, that's the number one thing I would say to guys is get good at relationship building, get friendly, be able to listen and to talk to people and learn from them. Like to me, I've always loved talking to people and learning. Um, the greatest invention to happen to trucking is the cell phone by far and away. Prior to the cell phone, it was just, pay phones and quietness. You know, you listen to the radio a lot. I didn't learn a lot from the radio other than to learn how to sing. And I didn't do that very well, right? I'm not singing you a tune right now, but that's my point is now you have, a cell phone to go with you wherever you go, and you're able to communicate with people all day long. And so you're able to do this job and that other job on top of it. You don't necessarily need to, when you're a single operator, you don't necessarily need a dispatcher or anyone behind you. You can do it all yourself right there from your phone going down the road. Just make a quick phone call with one of these guys, you know, Bluetooth headset,
Yeah.
and you can just, build that relationship. And, it's fantastic.
Nice. That's beautiful. Great words of wisdom there for a lot of people that maybe a little hesitant about starting their own business or having their own trucking company. Those relationships are key, and those connections are going to help get you in, those tough spots. You're going to be able to build on it. So, lessons you learned. Maybe that was something you learned the hard way. Was there a financial mistake that made you, early on that you thought would be a viable lesson to share with other people? Maybe it's something they can avoid that pitfall.
Don't use your business checking account like your personal checking account.
Yeah.
Make those two things separate. Treat it like a business. If you take the leap and become an owner operator, might go out and start a separate checking account. Make that your business account. Make sure your accounts receivable are going into your business account, and then pay yourself out of that and limit yourself. Pay yourself like a company driver. Whether it's by the mile or so much a month, like a salary wage, and then that's it. That's it. You know what I mean? Your business is separate. You know what I mean? That's for, that's what's going to keep you when times are lean. You know what I mean? When we were, during the big boom, everyone was cashing big checks. I didn't run out and buy anything fancy. I didn't get crazy. I just left that money there because I knew the cycle was coming back around. And that's the biggest mistake I made at the beginning. When I was a young man, I had the same checking account as I always had. I just had the money go in there and I had money. So like I spent it because I had money. Not knowing that I was going to need tires. And guess what? Tires are $5,000, for new tires. So is this one of those things I didn't use my head, didn't think it through.
It's okay. Yeah, that's how we learn. Sometimes just by the trial and error. I mean, and also too, you get to help someone else. So because you got to go through that pain. So you get to see, hey, man, it's something you can avoid. So yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. So what's something about running a business or trucking business that most drivers don't realize until they're in it? I know you mentioned like the expensive repairs or something like that, but what is something else that they could glean from you to help them see that, hey, um, let's do it differently.
Well, it's not as easy as it looks. Like I said, driving, if you're a good driver, it's you ultimately think that the business side is going to be easy. You know what I mean? Like the driving to me was the easy part because I had mastered that and it wasn't challenging anymore. After what am I in the business now? 35, 37 years? No. Yeah. Jesus.
Who's
Driving for 37 years, it seems like a long time. But that's the easy part. So what I didn't anticipate was the business side of it being this difficult, the relationships being this difficult, if you will. Like I didn't realize it was going to be that heavy into relationship building. But if you think about it, like you want to work with somebody you like, right? So that brokerage, if you establish a relationship or a customer, you know, if you reach out to them and they're your friend, they're going to want to work with you because there's hundreds of trucking companies out there. So it's something you don't really, really think about when did you kind of learn the hard way. You just kind of run out there and you got the truck and you got the equipment and you got the attitude and you got all these things that you can do. And you quickly learn like it's kind of humbling. You're like, oh, this is a little more difficult than it looks. From being a driver's point of view, that's the easy part. The hard part's the driving. But I've heard it said that they could take a business person and teach them how to drive a truck and they can make a successful trucking company out of it because the business is kind of the harder part than the driving part. So that was what was really unexpected for me. Like I said, maybe I was even cocky. You know what I mean? When you become really good at something, you're almost fearless, and you're like, oh, this can't be that difficult.
Oh, that's great, man. So now you get to let your message be heard for a lot of people. You're going to be speaking at Matt's, and what a full circle moment, where you were there as a spectator, learning and trying to get, as much knowledge as you can. Now you can share that knowledge. And, so what is that like for you? So do you have someone that attending Matt's for the first time? You give advice, would you give to them, or is there something about Matt's that people don't understand until they've been there that you like talk to them about?
Well, I will say this: the Mid America Truck Show, it's the biggest one. I've been to a lot of conventions since that first one. I remember reading about the Mid America Truck Show in magazines, because they didn't have trucking podcasts, they didn't have TV shows and YouTube and all this social media stuff. I would have to go to a magazine, Overdrive magazine, and I would read about the Mid America Truck Show. You know, so it was always this thing in my mind. I always wanted to go to it. I'm like, man, that seems like really cool to be around other industry people and to learn. So to me, having been there dozens of times since then, right? Uh, I would highly recommend to everyone that could attend it to attend it because it is you learn so much there. Whether it's meeting people, whether it's business people you meet, or just other drivers, and you network with them, and they've got ideas, and the camaraderie, like that's the thing about trucking. When I first started in the industry, you'd hang out at the truck stop. Like you would park there, like maybe for the entire weekend. But by the end of the weekend, you made two or three friends. You know what I mean? We didn't all go hide in the truck because we didn't have a phone to hide with. You know, so you would hang out with other drivers and you'd make these friends and you'd hang out, you'd grill, maybe you'd go buy some beer with them and you just sit there by your truck talking trucker talk, you know. But
Man, that's awesome.
everybody there is in the transportation industry. Everybody there. There's nobody even, you know what I mean? Like even the event staff is in the trucking industry. Everybody's there for the same goal. So to me, it's like finally getting some like-minded individuals all together in one big ass building and talking trucking. So to me, that's a huge win. If you want to be in trucking, I highly suggest Matt's. Now, when you go there, open your mind, just let it flow, look at things, understand, ask the person behind the desk, like, well, why would I need something like that? You know what I mean? Like, explain it to me, and just have them talk you through why this Flugelbinder works better on the end of a thing, and like whatever it is, there's all kinds of crazy ideas there, load securement ideas, chrome, why would I need a sharp pointy object on the end of my wheel hub, I don't know. But you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Like just open your mind, go there and meet guys like yourself, guys like me. I'll be there the whole time. I'm part of the opening breakfast. So there's like a breakfast there when you show up Thursday morning, and it's going to be me and a couple of guys from the FMCSA, a couple other, like owner operators, and we're just going to be part of this panel that's talking trucking. When people have any questions, and we're going to be talking about like kind of like what it's like in today's trucking industry. Like I've seen it grow from the 80s and 90s into what it is today. Like some people still holding on to that old school mentality, but really the trucking industry is modernizing, is kind of taking off, and it's up to guys to jump on board and learn some of these newer ways and stay current. So I think going to that truck show is a huge positive to kind of learn all those things under one roof. you know even if you never own a truck, just going there and learning that other side of it is huge as a driver. And then making connections too, with other drivers, and maybe you end up at the job of your dream because you met a guy that worked for wherever, Hell Bent Express. I don't know.
Man, that opening breakfast panel, can you give us a little sneak peek of what you're going to be talking about? Maybe just a little snippet.
They were talking about, it was just kind of like a State of the Union kind of a thing. They were going to have a panel up there to talk about um, where trucking is headed, what they think, where it's going. Um, I've read it a few times, and I've got to come up with something to say, I'm sure. But I'm, to me, I've lived trucking my whole life, so I am the knowledge, and you just got to pick the brain,
Yeah.
and the answer comes out, right? Like, so I don't need to study for it. I just, what I know is what I know, and I'm just try to share my knowledge to the best of my ability. Like, so if someone up there asks a question, I'm just gonna tell them what I know, and if I don't know, I don't know it, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're a natural here, even
Oh,
on the podcast, man. It just comes out. So, man, I appreciate you sharing that wealth of knowledge and also taking the opportunity to be at Matt's as a speaker for that opening breakfast panel. I think that's going to be huge for a lot of people that are curious about the trucking industry and what the future has to hold. So, what's something about Matt's that you think people don't want to miss out on? Any special events there that you plan on looking forward to?
oh,
Maybe taking a little break and stepping away with?
well, the one thing I like about Matt's that you don't get at other conventions for trucking is they definitely play into the lifestyle. So it's not only knowledge building. There's seminars, offshoots. So when you come into the big main building, there's a hallway that goes down, and there's different suites. Different for knowledge. Uh, there's all kinds of stuff. I know Kevin Rutherford's got a master class he's teaching there. There's all different kind. You'd have to go to their website to check them all out because there's dozens of classes you can attend. But then on top of it, you got the whole event inside the building. Out back of the building, there is a Pride and Polish, so you get to see all these crazy trucks these guys spend insane amount of money on to not use. Just so we're clear, they're spending the same amount of money so this truck doesn't get used. So that this thing is just a parade princess. You know what I mean? They just bring it out for people to stare at.
Right.
But it's still, as a driver, you know what I mean? Like you want to see it. You know what I mean? Like you want to see all that glam and crazy paint jobs and all the hard work people put into it, tricked out lights and all that. That's a huge thing to Pride and Polish. What other thing that there's always a concert. I'm trying to think who's in the concert. You got to be into country music to really love the concert. But they do. I think it's. I can't think of his name right now either. Tony Justice. There you go.
Yeah.
And so there's that. There's a lot of lifestyle going. There's after hours events that are going on. There's a big truck parking lot right next to the show where you can park a truck. So if you're just coming in, swinging through, that's a cool time because guys are hanging out, talking trucking in the parking lot, grilling, doing fun stuff. And then, like I said, there's after hours stuff too. You just got to find the right people where to go to hook up for the after hour stuff. Like it's so much more than just knowledge. It's the whole event. That's what, if you want to get into trucking, like this is the place, because you're just going to be immersed. You're going to come out of it dripping wet in trucking.
I like that. That's perfect. Dripping wet. Hey, man, that's a good one, man. Keep people wet their appetite and get them ready for Matt. So appreciate that. So a little, give a little people, circle back around the Hell Bent Xpress. Tell us a little bit about that. What does it specialize in? The type of hauling you guys do.
Well, I mean, it's adjusted since the beginning. When I bought the truck back in 2010, I bought a used truck. The market had just crashed, if you remember, in 2008. So they were still cleaning trucks out of the market. So I bought a truck that was only a couple of years old for $25,000. But, that was at an auction. So I'm not 100% sure somebody might have died in it. It always had a funky smell. I could never quite get out of it. I think there was a reason why it was dirt cheap. I hate to admit that, but I drove that truck for 3 years.
I didn't think about that.
I bought the truck and I leased it onto a carrier called Cliff Wiesman Incorporated out of Gary, South Dakota. And they specialized in food grade tanker, which is a whole different animal. The food grade industry, you have those requirements, food, so cleanliness, all those kind of things that people don't think about. But then it's all on-time deliveries. It's all super mega corporations that you deliver to. So it's always going to a huge plant, whether you're picking up or delivering, and all their little tiny requirements involved in that. And I did that for years here until 2020, when the market kind of, after COVID, if you remember, the market actually crashed right after COVID. In March, when they locked us all down, everything crashed. They were giving away trucks. They were giving away trailers. We were all going to die, So that's how I started Hell Bent Xpress. In September of that year, in 2020, I said, you know what? I can get a brand new truck for $120,000. And I can get a brand new trailer for $35,000. Like, why don't I go buy these two, start Hell Bent Xpress onto the side? Because I had 3 trucks leased to this carrier, Cliff Eastman, doing food. And we were just jamming because people were at home and we were, processed food was king then, you know what I mean? Like everyone was running out getting processed food, and that's what we were hauling, vegetable oils, liquid sugar. So we were going, we were making money. And so I ran out and bought this truck because it was super cheap, and I started it as kind of like a side project. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use this money here to start this. and we'll see where it goes. And we were just working the load board at the time because the load board was huge. It was blowing up. You couldn't, you could throw a dart against the wall and get something that paid money. You know what I mean? It didn't matter where you were going or what it was. The whole market was red. It was just red hot. So I took that and I started learning how to book freight, all those things. 21 comes and things get even more insane. Uh, and I bought 3 more trucks. So now it was 3 that were leased to this carrier and 4 that were running Hell Bent Xpress freight. And that's when I saw the future was like, that's where I wanted to be in complete control of it. And I shifted towards the van side, which is what we were doing, and just kind of running load board freight until we found customers. And then as we started getting into that, that's when we really, kind of took off and flourished, finding direct freight and it eventually shifted everything to that. Like we no longer have any trucks leased to Cliff. Everything's here at Hell Bent Express. And we
That's
do a
pretty.
lot with Bobcat Corporation, hauling parts and stuff like that. We do a lot of I got a local customer here in Aberdeen, South Dakota that we do a lot with hauling paper. But we have a couple specialty customers. We do have one owner operator that's leased onto us. He's got a flatbed, and we have a step deck trailer too. So we do a lot of specialty hauling from that standpoint. Like just out there, trying to find great people to work with, relationships.
Oh man, so family dynamics and trucking and mixing that with Hellbent. Trucking is demanding, but I mean, you still got responsibilities at home. How are you able to juggle all that together? And what's some ideas that you want to give for those people out there that are trying to get their career going, but yet they still got a family to take care of?
That's the hard part right there is family. I got 5 daughters, 3 with a previous marriage, and 2 with the lady I married, and we're that's the hard part. That's home time, you know. Oh, I don't know how to even quantify that to tell people how to, you know what I mean? Because you're so driven to succeed, you can sometimes lose track of your home life, you know. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask that. You try to do it as much as you can. You try to gamble it, or not gamble it. You try to shuffle it the best you can. You know what I mean? Like that's all you can do in the trucking because you can work yourself to death in trucking. That's the one thing. If you're a highly motivated individual, trucking is for you. You know what I mean? We'll give you enough rope to go hang yourself. You work yourself right to death in this industry. And uh, or you can go the complete opposite way with all that freedom. You could not work as hard as you want to, but that's the thing about it. There's nobody really there to tell you what not to do. So it's one of those jobs that you can really sink your personality into, you know, and be who you want to be, and then definitely focus on family or not. In my case, I've got a lot of regret. Let's just say that. In the first 10 years, I poured my heart into this business and shoved everything I could into it, and maybe didn't go home as much as it probably should have, So that's what I'm saying. Like it's a tough one. Probably not the guy to talk to about that.
No, that's a good answer. You're not making up stuff. You're giving them the real answer, so they know what they have to do. Just like financially, they got to make those decisions to pay themselves. They got to show that self control. So it's going to be the same thing with your time and how you spend it. So it is a balance. Making sure that they take care of the family at the same time. You want to be out there providing for your family monetarily. So it's a tough one. So yeah, thanks for speaking on that. Well, that's been a great conversation. You've given a lot of insights for our listeners. I think they're going to have a lot to think about, to digest. The industry in itself, like you said, it can work you to the bone. But yet there's plenty of to go around to learn from experienced people like yourself. So thanks for sharing your struggles, your victories, and your wisdom. It's been an honor to have you on the show. It really has been. So.
I really appreciate it, and I hope that back in my day, there was, like I said, there was plenty of sitting around truck stops and talking and passing on knowledge, especially when it came time to load or unload, to deliver. Guys were always willing to help. You don't see a lot of that these days. And what you do see is podcasters and just YouTube channels and stuff where guys can still share their knowledge, and that's key. That's awesome. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, it's a moment frozen in time, and you can always go back to it and listen to it again if you don't have time. So yeah, I love it. So I was thinking, what kind of drivers are you looking for out there? Maybe put the word out. Hell Bent Xpress is the best place to work. So.
Well, we do try to be really, like I said, try to make sure guys understand that they're the captain of the ship. But you still got to, understand the general's, or in this case, the admiral's agenda. You know what I mean? We still got to accomplish the goal here. So I can't just let you out into the ocean by yourself to some degree. But that's for me. I'm always looking for people that are motivated and good people. I can teach a guy how to drive a truck better. I can't teach him how to be a good person. You know what I mean? You just are, you aren't, and that's what I look for when it comes time to job interview. I just talk to people and just try to understand who they are as a person. I can always teach them how to drive. That's the easy part. I keep trying to stress that that's the easy part. But you know what I mean? You're the face of Hell Bent Xpress when you show up at a customer. You're the face. You know what I mean? The truck is there, but the truck is a tool. Trucking is a service industry. It's the person that you're selling. You know what I mean? It's one of my drivers that walks in the door, and that's who sells Hell Bent Xpress. So that's what we look for, is great people.
Nice. And you're great yourself. So thank you so much, man. Your journey as a company driver and to Matt's, and then now a business owner speaking at the show, man, it's inspiring. And I know our listeners are going to have a lot to take away and a ton of value that you're going to be able to appreciate from listening to your story. So for those tuning in, don't miss out on Jamie Hagen at the opening breakfast panel at Matt's March 27th. And if you want to check out Hell Bent Xpress, head on over to hellbentxpress.com. So if you have a story you want to share, or if you like what you hear and like what you see, be sure to subscribe and share it with another friend or fellow driver. I want you guys to keep safe out there on the road and keep rolling. And until next time, keep on trucking.
All right. Thanks, Ray.
Are you a trucker looking for a safe and reliable place to park? Look no further than Truck Parking Club. With locations across the country, we've got the perfect spot waiting for you, whether it's daily or long-term parking. And right now, use promo code DELIVERED at checkout for an exclusive discount. Reserve your spot today at truckparkingclub.com and drive stress-free, knowing your parking is covered.